Cameron Kurtz and Josh Komnick, and sitting to my left, a special guest on the cheap seats, Lincoln High School head football coach Jared Shaner. And Coach, thanks for joining us here this morning.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Coach, a interesting season that is coming up and that is in store for the Whalers this year. A competitive season at that, too. You have a few additions to the conference this year, and you've got, looks like, a pretty tough schedule that we're going through. Josh, why don't you go ahead and break this schedule down a little bit for us?
Well, of course, we've been talking about it here for a couple weeks now. Coach, you start out with Rochester on the road, the new team in the Central State 8. The Central State 8 is the conference here for Lincoln. And the 27th coming up in a couple weeks, you travel to Rochester. Coach, we just talking a little bit off the air about Rochester, and we were kind of thinking, Cameron and I haven't seen them in football. Can they compete in the Central State 8? And then, of course, you said right away they're going to be tough.
Yeah, they'll compete. For those of you that don't know too much about them, I kind of liken them to a Chatham-type school outside of Springfield there. And last year they were 12-1. They lost to Metamora, which were the 4A state champs. They lost by a point, and they went for a 2-point conversion and failed at the end of the game that would have put them in the state championship. They lost several seniors from that team, but they still have a lot of good players coming back. They had a very good sophomore team as well last year, so they'll be, they're going to be a very competitive first game for us.
And Coach, you've got, of course, first home opener Friday, the 3rd. And that Canton comes to town, which is a new team on the schedule. They're over in the Peoria area. And have you gotten to see them in the last couple of years, knowing that you might have them on the schedule, or do you know much about Canton?
We know a little bit about them. We actually played them in a 7-on-7 this summer. Got a chance to scout them a little bit there that day. Canton had a very solid program in the 80s and 90s, and have an NFL player that went to Canton, Boomer Grigsby, and then went on and played for the Chiefs for a while. The last few years they've been down. When we found out that Rochester was coming into the league, we knew we needed just a 2-year deal, and Canton was willing to give that to us, week 2 opponent for 2 years.
Perfect. And then on September the 10th, you travel to Jacksonville. Then on the 17th, you've got Lanphier at home, back-to-back home games. Lanphier at home on the 17th. And Southeast at home on the 24th. We travel to Chatham-Glenwood on the 1st. Springfield comes to Lincoln on the 8th, and then back at Taylorville on the 15th, and of course Sacred Heart Griffin at home on the last game at home on the 22nd. Coach, talk a little bit about the conference. Obviously, Sacred Heart Griffin is going to be right up there with the best. Where you think we're fitting in, and a look at the conference as a whole on how it's going to be this year.
Yeah. As a whole, the conference is going to be is strong once again. You look down that list, and as far as the conference games goes, there's not one that you can just go circle on your sheet and say that's a win or that's a loss or whatever. So it's going to be difficult for us. And coming off of a disappointing year last year, I think our kids are eager to go out and compete. But that being said, like I said, there's no gimmies on there for sure. Every week you've got to come out and play well in order to stay in games and compete.
Talk about your guys being eager this year. How has the heat been in the last last week? I know you just started practice, I believe, on Tuesday. And how have the guys fared in the heat? I'm not worried about the guys, but I'm also worried about yourself. I've seen you get fired up a little bit out there, and it's probably taking a toll a little bit on you too.
Oh, you can kind of hear it in my voice a little bit. It's been hot this week. We did a few things to help take care of that. We went early in the morning. We started with meetings at 6:30 a.m. And then for the most part, the kids we're done about noon. We lift for around an hour or so. So all the kids are at home in the afternoon when it's the hottest part of the day, so that's helped. We've also got a great trainer on staff. She's out there with us all the time. Lots of water breaks, and I got a bucket that's my own personal bucket with ice water and towels in there. And when Coach Shaner gets too hot, I just head over and get a little of that on my head.
And Coach, we take a look at not only what the conference is going to hold, but also kind of take a look as to what Illinois football is going to hold. There are a lot of teams that come in, year out. Do you think the Central State 8 is one of the most challenging conferences in this part of the state? Maybe not necessarily for our class system that we're in, but also as a whole.
Absolutely, and I know everybody has pride in their conference, and Everybody feels like their conference is one of the strongest, and in some cases that's true. But you look at our conference, year in and year out since 93, 94, whenever it formed there, and Sacred Heart Griffin has 3 state championships, a couple runners-up. Chatham Glenwood has a state championship, and truth be told, there's probably a couple school, Chatham, maybe a Jacksonville team, a Taylorville team in there that if they didn't have to go play Griffin in the playoffs, then they've probably got some semifinal appearances or quarterfinal appearances. So I absolutely think the Central State 8, and now with the addition of Rochester, we are one of the toughest conferences in Central Illinois.
This may be that's okay. This may be a tough question to kind of answer, but who do you think is going to be the biggest surprise of the conference this year? Maybe the most improved team from last year, or who do you think could be the sleeper of the conference?
Right off the bat, I'm just going to go out there and say it's not tough for me to answer. Lincoln's going to be the biggest surprise.
Good. I like that confidence.
I'm be very honest. I'm not one to be cocky. And when you come off of a frustrating season, an 0-9 season like that, we have a lot of work to do. But the kids have responded well, and I really feel like we're going to come out and compete week after week. If I could predict the future, I wouldn't be a high school football coach, that's for sure. I'd probably be out in Las Vegas somewhere, but, I feel like we're going to come out and compete week after week, and I really hope that some of the other conference schools are going to, just put a W next to our name right here in, the preseason and look on to their next week's opponent.
Coach, how have you seen this summer and this preseason different than maybe some other preseasons or summers that you have guys upset about the season from last year? Talk a little bit about the mindset that you've had, or if you changed anything during your summer workouts or preseason, or even maybe some of your practice schedule on anything that you might be doing different as far as offense, defense, just practice or anything, weight room, all that kind of stuff.
Sure, we did several things at the end of last year. We took a little time, and the coaches met, and we watched a lot of film, and we kind of decided, what are the things that we did poorly? What did we do well, but things didn't work out for us? And we put a lot of thought and hard work and effort into it, and then we tried to, translate that over into what we're doing day in and day out in the winter in the weight room, and in the spring and the summer. And really what we did was, as coaches and players, we came up with, we talked about the fact that everybody has goals, and we can talk about all these great things that we want to do this year. But the bottom line is we had to go from where we were last year to where we want to get to. So what we did was we sat down and we made what we called our roadmap to success. And we physically wrote out some things that we felt we needed to work on from last year to this year in order to be a better team. We talk a lot with the kids about goal setting and about having, kind of the proper state of mind. So we sat down together, and like I said, we came up with a list of 4 or 5 things that we felt we needed to do, and that's kind of what drives our practices. That's what drives our meetings, and we talk about it with the kids all the time.